What are the three key questions for fantasy football revolving around the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers as they head into training camp with the preseason? Time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. Things are revving up. We're going to break down all that you need for fantasy at SN here around the corner here. As the teams start to open training camp, we're going to open our camp, getting ready and knowing what we need to do in our fantasy football drafts when they come around in late August, early September to dominate all season long in season-long leagues and Dynasty Keeper. However you look at it, we want you to be the most successful player in fantasy in 2022, and part of it is looking at all 32 teams. We've done a pretty good job of that so far. We're on our last team here to break down the three key questions series that we've done in the AFC North. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers, so a pretty good team to get the spotlight on today's show. That'll wrap up that division. Then we'll start it up with the AFC South. So two more divisions to go. If you missed any of the previous teams, all 16 in the NFC, and what we've covered so far in the AFC East and AFC North, check it out on our archives. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We are free and available to you on all platforms. All right, let us dive right into the Steelers, an intriguing team for sure, and how we've been doing this. If you haven't heard one of these key question breakdowns for you, is looking at quarterback situation, looking at the running backs, and then the most important question surrounding the wide receiver core. So we'll do that with the Steelers as well. They have a pretty obvious question when it comes to quarterback, and we'll add a second part to this. What are the chances of Kenny Pickett winning the starting quarterback job, and will he have some fantasy football relevance at some point during his rookie season? So it's a two-part question there. So first, let's look at Mitchell Trubisky. He's got a strong hold on the job for now. They've invested considerable money in him as he makes the transition from the Bills. Had a season there with Brian Dable and Josh Allen in that bridge year from the Bears, where he didn't quite live up to being the number 2 overall pick for Chicago. Had some success, got some playoff teams going there, and had some moments in the Matt Nagy offense, but it just didn't add up to the right results here. You didn't see any progression from Trubisky. Considering he's an exceptional athlete, strong arm quarterback, you didn't see the efficiency, decision-making all come together, but the physical tools are there, and the Steelers in particular looked at the physical tools and said, hey, this could fit really well in what we want to do. He's got the big arm. That's the big attraction, and why Trubisky is going to get some chances in this league for a while is because he can throw the ball anywhere on the field, downfield, make those deep throws. The question is, can he be accurate with them? Can he connect on the other end with some of the receivers he has consistently? And that has been a knock on Trubisky. He's a bit skittish as well. He's not sure sometimes what to do in the pocket. He's pretty good at scrambling out of the pocket and make something happen with his legs, but sometimes he takes off and runs too fast or sets himself up to be sacked and bring the pressure to him a little bit too easily. So those are the key questions with Trubisky is, can he shake off some of those bad habits that are ingrained in him from his days with the Bears? Maybe that Bill system shook some of that off, but we still didn't see him take the field in significant action. There were Josh Allen as an MVP candidate last year, having a big season there in Buffalo. So jury's still out on what Mitchell Trubisky can do, and I get the supporting cast is a little bit better here than what he had in Chicago. Look at Diontae Johnson, Chase Claypool are his number 1 and number 2 receivers. You got George Pickens, you got Calvin Austin, a rookie there. So you got some speed and interesting options there for the slot. You got Miles Boykin cast off, a Notre Dame product who was playing for the Ravens. He didn't really stay healthy to do anything there. And you also have a former Bear interesting. Trubisky has a connection with him a little bit. Anthony Miller, he was hyped up to be the next big thing at slot receiver. Instead, Darnell Mooney has become the Bears' number one without Allen Robinson. So that's kind of the depth chart lines up there. Some good other weapons, including Pat Freiermuth, a tight end, and Najee Harris, an excellent pass-catching feature back there. So the weapons are there. They did some upgrading on the offensive line. Not major moves, but a few things there, including Mason Cole in the interior, changing things up there. So the interior was the focus, trying to get some better continuity and just better play together from the five guys up front here. So we look at that. They feel confident in Trubisky's arm, that being a good fit in the Matt Canada offense. They got frustrated at times last 2 seasons of Ben Roethlisberger, his career, that the arm just wasn't there. He couldn't push the ball downfield. It was a lot of short passing. We saw that Juju Smith-Schuster averaged less than 10 yards per catch. Well, that's because there was just a very difficult time for the Steelers to get anything deep going. They had the occasional shots that would work to Chase Claypool, but they were very inconsistent. Everything else, very much short to intermediate routes, including check downs to Najee Harris. And that's why Freiermuth took a key Heath Miller-like role last year as a rookie, because Roethlisberger had to lean on the shorter routes and not have as much success throwing the ball downfield with his yards per attempt. So that's what they're trying to rectify the most. Trubisky can take advantage of that, push the ball downfield. Again, Josh Allen and that system was all about that in Buffalo. So maybe that translation and transition helps him with the Steelers. But you look at Kenny Pickett coming on, he can do a lot of the same things. He's a plus athlete. He's got a nice arm. He's very athletic and accurate in throwing the ball downfield. He's also got that confidence. And that's really hard because Trubisky, you can't teach that aspect. And Trubisky's had a little bit of trouble with his confidence there. The so-called buzzword of poise, where he just is unafraid. Fearlessness there as a young quarterback. And Kenny Pickett has some of that for sure. He was patient as well, waiting until his big senior year at Pittsburgh to really break through. So he also has great familiarity playing with the Pitt Panthers, with the stadium, with the practice facility, with the team, the area. So there's a lot of usual stuff that a rookie has to go through that Kenny Pickett does not, in terms of accustoming himself to the NFL and just learning the ways of it. He doesn't have to worry about a change in the habit, other than instead of playing mostly on Saturdays, he's going to be playing mostly on Sundays now. So interesting development there in the former Heinz Field now, as they've changed the name, but there's a routine there established where he doesn't have to worry about that part, rearranging his life, and training camp is going to be a more natural thing for him. It's just going to start a little bit later in a different area, but still it's a big thing where you don't have to worry about that. So he can go out there, just focus on putting in the best reps possible, showing his fearlessness, showing that he has a higher ceiling, which is the reason he was a first-round pick. Let's get that clear. He was the only first-round quarterback, despite the signing of Trubisky. If they were just fine with Trubisky as just a bridge quarterback that they were going to use without any competition, they wouldn't have used a first-round pick. It's an aggressive move for the Steelers in their last draft, Kevin Colbert, to do that. So sometimes you have to follow the money, and the money is considerable for Trubisky. And you look at that part of it, but you also have to follow the pedigree. And I think Pickett has that a little bit more. He's the fresh face around. I still think the burden of proof is going to be on Pickett to get out there and start in week one. Trubisky is a little bit more established. I think right now Mason Rudolph looks like he'd be the number 2 because of experience. So they're going to bring it along Pickett slowly, but we know what happened there in the Tommy Maddox, Ben Roethlisberger situation back in 2004. Things didn't work out that way, and they played Roethlisberger way more than they expected for most of the season, and it turned out to be a one-loss regular season. Didn't quite work out in the playoffs with Tom Brady and the Patriots looming, but in the end, Roethlisberger was their best opportunity to win games and maximize their offensive skill players, and that's something they're going to definitely consider here. If Trubisky is disappointing or if he's shaky, I think they would quickly maybe move to Pickett. The question is, will he be ready in the time that he gets called upon, or do they have to turn to Mason Rudolph? I don't think they want to go to Rudolph at any point this season. They just want him as the veteran backup, and Trubisky being the bridge to Pickett at some point. So, again, I can't say exactly how many games Pickett will start. I would good feeling he's probably not going to start week 1, but I also don't think the door is closed on him to do so. So early in the season, if the Steelers struggle a little bit and they're not getting as much as they would like out of their offense to help support their defense and win games, they're going to make that move to Pickett. So that's in their history as well. Different coach back then in Bill Cowher, but the Steelers and their organization seem to follow similar patterns with their coaches and quarterbacks. So we've seen it all kinds of ways here. You had Mark Malone was pretty much redshirted there as a first-round quarterback. You had Terry Bradshaw. He played half the season and kind of rolled into being the starting quarterback in his second year. So there's a wide range of outcomes here for Pickett, given it's been a long time since the Steelers invested in a first-round quarterback. So, and Roethlisberger, again, by happenstance, he had to play, and injury opened up the door for him, and they started winning, and they didn't look back for many seasons with Roethlisberger through his retirement in 2021 after that season. So when you're looking at Pickett, I do like the Steelers quarterback to have some fantasy football value this year. I'm just not sure what you're going to get in the end from Pickett. So you can't invest in any one of these guys, but we have to keep them on the radar, given the weapons are there, Harris, Johnson, Claypool, Freiermuth, that they're going to have some chances to put up some numbers. They can work in a streaming system, that kind of quarterback, but you're not going to look at any regular production, and you're not going to look at them as just a solid backup QB2 because the situation is fluid and the quarterback could change and toggle between these quarterbacks pretty easily. So again, it's more weight a year on the Steelers quarterbacks to extract fantasy football value with these particular weapons they have that are pretty good starting in 2022. All right, there you have a breakdown of the Steelers quarterback situation. So it's complicated. I think we'll see Kenny Pickett at some point on the field, but his fantasy football relevance will be limited here. We'll get into the second-year player that's buzzing here for fantasy football that going to be drafted early in a lot of leagues. We'll get into him in our next segment. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love, and deliciously chewy marshmallow flavored goodness package covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They're good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are only here for limited time. Go to Built.com now to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. All Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits for you. So eat something that tastes good and is also good for you. The best part about Built Puffs, of course, is they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually great as the perfect treat, perfect when you're getting a craving, you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you need a quick, healthy snack, they're always there for you as an excellent source of protein, delicious coconut, rich, sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Go to Built.com to order your box of coconut brownie chunk Built Puffs right now. It's very easy to do. All you do is go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get in and get going to get those coconut brownie chunk Built Puffs while they're here. All right, we will continue the show in the moment here, looking at the Steelers' 3 key questions in fantasy football kingdom here for 2022. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting early this week, July 18th, Locked On started giving you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Again, it's available right now on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube well, you can find us there as well, YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, Locked On Fantasy Football. So Locked On NFL doing some great stuff there with our friends at BetOnline. All right, it is time to continue the show and ask that key question in the Steelers' backfield. Will Najee Harris have the potential to be the RB1 overall? Yep, we went there with Najee Harris. Now, the yards per carry were a struggle last year, but he made up for it with the touchdowns and receiving volume. So Najee Harris was solid last year. He came through as a rookie first-round pick in fantasy the way we wanted, as the Steelers' unquestioned feature back. They still have some of the same guys behind him, Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland. And Trey Edmonds is also there, but this is the Najee Harris backfield. They're going to load it up on him as much as possible. Look, they were already leaning heavily on him with Roethlisberger and the noodle arm. Guess what? They're going to take pressure off Trubisky and or Kenny Pickett by feeding Harris the ball a lot. They think their interior offensive line is better with some of the guys I mentioned. So they think that's going to be a factor, that they're going to be able to have better chunk runs from Harris. His legs are built like tree trunks, speaking of chunks. And he's a guy that can burst and get some nice big yardage as a power back and also scoot into the open field. So I think you look at where you can get the number one overall scoring at running back, and you look at volume is number one. Talent is right there with it. But volume, the opportunity is going to be there. And we know Jonathan Taylor is going to get plenty of touches there for the Colts. Najee Harris is going to be loaded upon here for the Steelers. He's the bread and butter of what they really want to do with Mike Tomlin. And he's going to set up what they want to do downfield in the passing game as well. Run, set it up to throw deeper to their receivers. Then you can check down to Harris if something's not there. He's proved adept at that part of his game. So really, there's nothing there not to like about Najee Harris. So the hype is there, and I think he's worth kind of looking at right away after Jonathan Taylor's off the board. Why I say this is there's some issue with everyone. Alvin Kamara has a looming suspension, Christian McCaffrey injuries, Derrick Henry getting up there, also coming up with wear and tear. Dalvin Cook always seems to miss a game or two. So Harris is right up there with a lot of those guys because of his volume as well as talent. I mean, he's a first-round pick. The pedigree is there. The Steelers want to give him the ball quite a bit here. However you look at it, whether it's a shaky veteran that they want to get on the right track. Remember what the Bears did with David Montgomery, try to take a lot of pressure off Trubisky. And if it's a rookie, you know it's going to even happen more with Harris. And then Pickett should also be checking down more if he's in there and use his running back. So the pass catching is going to be there. The reception volume is going to be rather high. The targets and touches are going to add up nicely here for Harris. So it's all lining up well. And yeah, I think there's a case that he should be the second running back off the board. And people are a little bit reluctant to go after these young backs, but these are the backs that you can run to the ground a little bit. It's not great for reality sometimes where these guys can burn out, but when a team is committed to a guy and they trust him and they feel like he can hold up the way that Taylor does, he doesn't even miss practice. Harris was rather durable with his rookie role as well. Always look for youth to serve you. If the talent is there and the volume is there and it lines up well and it has a little bit more appeal and upside than some of the veterans that you would usually take there, be aggressive, go after Najee Harris in that role. So love Harris again. I'm not threatened by any of those guys. They didn't really change the backfield, so that tells me they're just fine with Snell in there as a power back at times, McFarland using his speed as a change of pace, and pretty much it there, and give Harris limited breathers here and give him most of the touches. So if he doesn't average 25 touches per game, I'd be shocked in the end. So when you're looking at 25 touches per game, it's a little bit different now. You're looking at 425 versus 400 touches in a season. Now, I could see it break down where he gets close to 300 there with his carries and then 80-something balls. So close to 400 there over the course of the season, and that's what you're looking for. So around 25 touches per game are in order, and some games in others, he will get a little bit more in the running game when they're ahead and they can close out teams a little bit and give him volume in the second half. Then you'll make up for some if they're trailing with a lot of targets there and receptions on the shorter passes to help you in half point and full point PPR. So Harris, again, if you look at pure talent and what his role is going to be, he's right up there with Jonathan Taylor, has a great case to compete with Taylor to put up the biggest numbers. So yeah, believe in the RB1 hype for Najee Harris. Now, we have some wide receiver one hype also that we have to talk about in our final segment. We'll do that here on Locked On Fantasy Football as we explore the three key fantasy football questions facing the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, speaking of the Steelers, we've covered this division pretty much in depth this week, the AFC North. So be the Ravens and the Bengals and Browns, Steelers. So we've gotten through all the NFC teams. Well, a good way to keep up on all your favorite teams and what they're doing here in training camp and throughout the preseason is follow our team-by-team podcast here on the Locked On NFL Network. We do a great job on Locked On NFL. We bring it to you here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We also bring you top-notch draft content as well, getting an early jump on that. But team by team, beat reports in convenient listening form, 5 days a week. You won't get anything better than that to keep up with your favorite team. So check them out. Wherever your favorite team is, we got you covered here on the Locked On NFL Network. Our team of local experts, amazing here that you won't find any group as qualified anywhere else. All right, it is time to close the show and ask that big question about a wide receiver one potential here in the Steelers receiving corps. And here it goes. Will Diontae Johnson deliver as an easy wide receiver one here in 2022? So, yeah, we're going to hold off on the quarterback situation between Trubisky and Pickett. We're all in about Najee Harris and the running back situation. Now let's examine Diontae Johnson pretty much in the top 12. And a lot of places, he's going ahead of names like Tyreek Hill. He's going in the same range as Michael Pittman Jr. as clear-cut go-to guys. And it might not seem that way, that Diontae Johnson is in that number one target conversation, reality and fantasy, where he's going to be like a DeAndre Hopkins type, or to relate it to the Steelers' best worker, Antonio Brown in his prime, Emmanuel Sanders. There was a lot of comparison to Diontae Johnson. You can throw it back to Hines Ward a little bit. So all the comfortable Steelers receivers of the past, they've had Diontae Johnson's makeup. And we've seen some monster years, including those from Antonio Brown before things went wacky with him and a downward spiral into other teams. In his prime, he was amazing. And Diontae Johnson doesn't have any of those issues. He's got his head on straight. He's a very smart and productive receiver here, and he's going to get better here with age. And I really like him. I think it's a big breakout year coming for him. This year, you look at the rest of the weapons here. Chase Claypool, deep threat, so getting that consistency between Trubisky and Pickett and Claypool is going to be something to watch. Then you look at their next receivers. George Pickens, I really like him out of Georgia. I also like Calvin Austin, but one guy is this big, speedy slot guy. One's a little speedy slot guy there in Austin. So it's going to take a while as rookies to get accustomed to this offense. Boykin is new here. Miller's only attribute Anthony Miller is that he has some familiarity with Trubisky, but there's not much there. Boykin and Miller pretty much flyers here for training camp. So Diontae Johnson in a great place to dominate targets. He can get open all over the field. He can play well off Najee Harris on the shorter routes, and the Pat Freiermuth on the intermediate routes in the middle of the field. So this is basically your triplet combination there. You can trust most, with Claypool being the deep ball guy. So Claypool more you look at as a wide receiver 3 sleeper. But Johnson, I think, is deserving of being locked in as a wide receiver 1. I think he's going to get the key targets here for the Steelers. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, Trubisky or Pickett. He's still produced there with Roethlisberger. So the big arm is going to help if Johnson expand his repertoire as a receiver. He can do everything. Again, it reminds me a lot of Antonio Brown on the field. The Steelers are very good at getting clones. I mean, look at Pat Freiermuth. He's pretty much Heath Miller again. Najee Harris, a little bit of a different backs that they've had in Pittsburgh, including Jerome Bettis and Rashard Mendenhall, part of those type of kind of lineage of power backs that also have a little bit of juice as well. So they're good about the Steelers, that is. Good about just kind of finding things that worked in their history and trying to make them repeat themselves. So, and they look for similar types of players, and Johnson is that type. So, yeah, I think he finishes easily in the top 12. He's maybe not as hyped as some others because, and he's not flashy. You just look at the numbers every week. He gets the job done somehow. He's just reliable. He gets open and schemes open well for his quarterback. So, excited about his potential here. And Claypool getting the opportunity to stretch the field a little bit better with Trubisky and Pickett having bigger arms than end-of-career Roethlisberger is certainly going to help because that's going to open things up elsewhere. But they're going to rely upon him a lot here again. Incorporating young receivers, new quarterback room ahead of Rudolph here. So, all lines up to going with your most familiar, trusted guy, the receiving corps. Diontae Johnson, order him up here. I think he's going to deliver and be very special for this team. And I think there's some untapped potential there with his ability to stretch the field when needed. They haven't really gotten to that as much, but he battled some injuries early in his career, but has got back on track here to be a durable guy, reliable guy. So I could even see his first real Pro Bowl type season there that breaks out there. Everyone knows him as a household name receiver after the season. Definitely expected to happen. Doesn't matter who's throwing to him. He's just that special receiver. and he's going to establish himself as one of the league's better number ones. And when you're one of the league's better number ones, that translates and bodes well for fantasy football for sure. So, again, a lot of this offense is going to run through Harris and Johnson. Freiermuth is going to be that extra underneath target that's going to help whoever the quarterback is, Trubisky or Pickett. Trubisky is a veteran security blanket. Pickett is a tendency from a rookie. And then Claypool, again, will get his shots, but got to have someone establish it and get the attention from the number one corners. But also the threat of Claypool is going to reduce the double teams on Johnson. People are going to be afraid of Claypool getting over the top and making the big plays because of Trubisky and Pickett's arm here. So he's going to get some favorable coverage as well as the number one Johnson is, because Claypool intimidating with speed, though, working these other guys well. And just with Matt Canada, you're going to see a lot of good scheming for the Steelers passing game with whoever's a quarterback this year, knowing that he has a little bit better of an arm advantage here to spread the ball around this season. All right, there you have it. There's a look at the 3 key questions facing the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers in regards to fantasy football as they get ready to open training camp and the 2022 preseason. Looking forward to what Harris and Johnson can do in particular. And we'll see how it works out, but let's hope Kenny Pickett can get out there and be effective as well to open up the offense for everyone else with that arm, and the reason why he was drafted as the only first-round quarterback here in 2022. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Now make your second listen to the Locked On NFL podcast. Talk about the BetOnline series there. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and latest news around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal breaking the action, as we know here on Locked On Fantasy Football. For Locked On Fantasy Football, for our look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, this has been Vinnie Iyer. We'll close the week looking at the key questions with the 2022 Houston Texans.